As Little Children by Gerhard Tersteegen. There are many ways, means, and preparations whereby we may gain reunion and fellowship with God. But the nearest way of all, and the easiest means, yes, the tiny point where this union is actually achieved, is when we become little children. The Son of God became one with mankind as a child, and mankind can only be united to God in the state of spiritual childhood. And indeed, dear sister, the baby Jesus constrains us once again to enter with him into the most perfect innocence of the childlike mind. So away with all scruples, brooding, suspicion, unrest, and all lovelessness. When I spoke to him for a short time, I did notice that he was not willing just then to sink right down into simplicity. But I thought that it would come of itself when we knew one another better. For beside his uncommon cleverness, knowledge, and talents, I perceived that he certainly had a feeling for God. I loved him for it, and love him still. But with such people who have eaten so much of the tree of knowledge, one must have great patience. The way is hard enough for us and others too before we become really simple and willing to take upon ourselves undaunted the shame of Christ. How much more difficult is it for such as he? Let us just be onlookers for a while. By cross and distress, God can still bring many a one down from the seat of the scorner, so that later he will gladly sit down among the children. Through prayer, the poorest and most wicked child of man can become a holy child of God, even if you do not see and feel it at once and all the time. The child often drinks his mother's milk without realizing it, or in sleep, and is being fed unawares. To be a child is your calling. Listen to no other gospel. In it alone you will find rest. Do not make so many conjectures about the future. How will things turn out in the end? Will you ever be saved? And so on. These are the fruits and thoughts of reason, not of faith. Does a baby make himself ill with worrying if he will ever become a perfect, full-grown man? He just sucks, eats, and drinks with a good courage and grows imperceptibly, for time soon shows whether he will grow and how big he will be. So do you also. Trust the Lord to do his work, and walk with him as with a beloved bosom friend in all simplicity and sincerity of heart. We should be like children with one another, and, as such, behave in all simplicity. In this way we will make fewest mistakes. The truly childlike intention of walking in God's ways will not look at the contrary notions of reason, but let them vanish in the presence of the Lord, without stopping to give them a glance. A child is weak, careless, and often breaks or spoils something. The father punishes or disciplines the child, but he will not chase him out of the house for it. He is still his child, deeply moved because he has hurt his father, and promising to do better. This promise is childish enough, but it is childlike, and what is more, it comes from the heart. The father sees it and is pleased, although he knows the child's weakness very well. And see, dear brother, it is the same with our acts, our undertakings, and our promises, which we must rate neither too high nor too low. We place them too high when we treat a serious intention as the achievement itself, or as if we were able to keep to it and carry it out as planned. We place them too low when we consider them as our own productions, and when we experience again and again our own disloyalty and backsliding. We let everything go and give no more time to good resolves under the apparent pretext that we would not be able to keep them. The inability is in us, but the ability to persevere to the end is in God, and our inability is meant to drive us to him. Close your eyes and walk in faith and in surrender, and fear will disappear. And when the light dawns again, you will say that you have walked aright. This fear arises partly from the withdrawal of all visible strength and support. It is with you as with a little child who is always afraid of falling, while all the time his mother is holding him firmly by the reins behind, without his knowing it. But if he stumbled or were about to fall, at once he would feel his mother's hand holding him. No, my dear child, there is no danger. Your mother is near. Although she is not before your eyes, the more afraid you are, the more likely you are to stumble. But if you were about to fall, you would be conscious at once of something in you, I know not what, drawing you aside or so directing outward things that nothing would happen. Trust the hand of God holding you, although you cannot see it, and rely on the leading strings of his divine providence. And even in the greatest suffering, do you not feel within you an inextinguishable, if obscure and secret, longing for the simple, innocent, gentle, blindly trusting nature of a child and for the inner life? Yes. And from time to time, do you not feel a comforting impression coming from beyond your own understanding and outward activity of the deep-rooted certainty that God wants you to attain it in that way? God became a child so that the repentant might see that he forgets their sins and forgives like a child and is not angry like a hard man. This child gives us faith and confidence.